The Trojans were expert soldiers. They'd survived a decade of siege warfare, and yet they were destroyed not by force, but by a gift. Modern IT security teams spend billions on firewalls, encryption, and threat detection, and are still, most often, undone not by force, but by an email attachment. Why does the smartest defense in the world keep losing to the same simple move? Imagine 10 years of war just ended. The enemy who has been camped outside your city gates finally sails away. And in the morning light, they leave behind one thing: a massive wooden horse, tall as the walls themselves. No note, no demand, just a gift, standing quiet on an empty battlefield. Would you open the gate? Before you answer, consider this. Every fortress, every kingdom, every guarded place in history has faced the same impossible contradiction. A wall that never opens is perfectly safe. It's also useless. Food has to get in. Trade has to happen. People have to move. The moment a system needs to function, it needs an opening. And that opening is the one place a defense can never be made completely safe. This isn't just a puzzle for old stone cities. It's the same problem facing every computer connected to the internet today. A machine with no connection to anything else is unhackable. It's also worthless. The instant it needs to talk to the outside world, it needs a door. And that door is where the real danger begins. For 10 years, the walls of Troy held. Not one crack, not one breach. So how did the greatest siege in ancient memory finally end? According to the ancient sources that preserve the story, most fully in Virgil's Aeneid, the Greeks tried everything force could offer. 10 years of open warfare, 10 years of battles beneath those walls. And Troy did not fall. So the Greek commanders changed strategy completely. Instead of trying to break the wall, they aimed at the one thing every wall depends on: the judgment of the people behind it. They built a massive wooden horse and hid a small group of soldiers inside its hollow frame. Then they burned their own camp, boarded their ships, and appeared to sail away for good. What they left behind wasn't a weapon. It was framed as an offering to the goddess Athena, a peace gesture, a symbol that the war was finally, truly over. This detail matters. The horse wasn't smuggled in secretly. It was designed to be found, admired, and pulled inside voluntarily. The Trojans didn't lose because someone broke in. They lost because they made the decision to bring the danger in themselves. And the ancient sources are careful to point out that skepticism existed. In Virgil's telling, the priest Laocoon warns his fellow Trojans directly, famously cautioning them to be wary of gifts brought by their enemies. The prophetess Cassandra, cursed to always tell the truth and never be believed, warns them too. Both are ignored. Why? Because after 10 years of grinding war, the emotional pull of victory was stronger than caution. The war was over. They had won. Refusing what looked like a peace offering, especially one framed as sacred to the gods, felt not just suspicious, but disrespectful. So the horse was brought through the gates. That night, the hidden soldiers climbed out, opened the city to the returning Greek army, and Troy fell in hours after standing for a decade. Notice what actually happened here. The walls of Troy were never defeated. No siege engine broke them. No army climbed over them. The strongest defense in the ancient world was left completely intact. The Greeks simply stopped attacking the wall and started attacking the decision of the people guarding it. That distinction is the entire story. Troy wasn't beaten by force. It was persuaded to defeat itself. And 3,000 years later, that exact strategy would resurface, aimed not at a city, but at a screen. Fast forward past bronze swords and wooden ships, into a world of firewalls, encryption, and global networks. On the surface, nothing could look more different from ancient Troy. And yet, security experts trying to break into modern systems keep discovering the same basic truth the Greeks found first. The strongest technical defense in the world can be walked straight through. If you don't attack the system, you attack the person using it. This approach even inherited the name. In computing, a program that disguises itself as something safe or useful while secretly carrying a harmful payload is called a Trojan. The comparison to the ancient story isn't accidental. It's deliberate. One of the clearest examples is the ILOVEYOU virus, which spread rapidly across the world in the year 2000. It arrived by email, disguised as a love letter, with an attachment that looked like a simple text file. Curiosity, or in some cases affection, was enough to make people open it. Once opened, It didn't just infect one machine. It quietly copied itself and forwarded to contacts in the victim's own address book, spreading further because it now appeared to come from someone familiar and trusted. That single mechanic is worth pausing on. The virus didn't need to break encryption. It didn't need to defeat a firewall. It needed one person to make one decision, to open a file that looked harmless, and it counted on human trust to do the rest of the work. This pattern is often summarized in cybersecurity as social engineering, manipulating people rather than machines. And the numbers back up how effective it remains. Industry security research consistently finds that the large majority of successful breaches begin not with a technical exploit, but with a human action, an employee clicking a link, opening an attachment, or entering credentials into a page that looks legitimate. The incentive here is simple, and it mirrors the Greek strategy at Troy almost exactly. Attacking a firewall directly is slow, expensive, and often fails. Attacking a single person's judgment, especially when disguised as something familiar, urgent, or desirable, is faster, cheaper, and far more reliable. Modern organizations spend enormous resources on technical defenses, encryption standards, intrusion detection, network monitoring. All of it protects the wall. But like Troy, the actual point of failure is rarely the wall itself. It's the moment someone with legitimate access decides to open the door because what's outside looks safe, familiar, or too important to ignore. Two completely different worlds, separated by 3,000 years of technology, arrived at the exact same weakness. That's not a coincidence. That's a pattern worth taking apart piece by piece. Strip away the wooden horse and the malicious email, and what's left underneath is the same basic equation. A system exists. That system needs an opening to function. And someone with the authority to use that opening has to make a judgment call about what to let through. Every failure we've just described happened at that third step, not at the wall, and not at the code, but at the decision. This is worth stating plainly, because it reframes both stories. Troy's walls weren't a weak point. Modern encryption isn't a weak point either. Defenses built around known, external threats, like an invading army or malicious code, tend to work exactly as designed. What neither system was built to defend against was its own authorized user, acting in good faith, making a reasonable-seeming choice at exactly the wrong moment. Lined up side by side, the similarities are hard to ignore. In both cases, the attacker didn't target the barrier. They targeted the one place the barrier had to open. In both cases, the danger was disguised as something legitimate, a sacred offering in one case, a familiar email in the other. In both cases, someone in a position to know better raised a warning, Laocoon and Cassandra in the myth, cybersecurity training and awareness campaigns today, and that warning was overridden by urgency, familiarity, or desire. And in both cases, one moment of trust was enough. The horse only had to be pulled through the gate once. The attachment only had to be opened once. But the comparison shouldn't be stretched further than it actually holds. There are real, important differences. Speed and scale are not close. The Trojan Horse took a decade of siege to set up, and it worked exactly one time, against exactly one city. A modern digital exploit can spread to thousands of systems within hours, because it isn't limited by geography or physical movement. Recovery looks completely different too. Troy had no way to patch the damage. Once the city fell, that was final. Modern organizations, by contrast, can identify a breach, patch the vulnerability, and update their defenses within days, sometimes learning from the very attack that hurt them. The nature of the attacker is different as well. The Trojan Horse was one specific plan, built by a known enemy, aimed at one target. Most modern malware isn't personal at all. It's built to be sent out at scale, toward anonymous, unknown victims, with no specific grudge behind it. And institutions today can actually train for this threat in a way Troy never could. Troy faced a tactic that, as far as the ancient sources tell us, had never been used before. There was no precedent to prepare for. Modern organizations, having seen this pattern play out for decades, can run security training, simulate phishing attempts, and build verification steps into everyday behavior. So the mechanism repeats. The stakes, the speed, and the ability to recover do not. Once you notice this shape, though, it's hard to unsee it. Every functioning system, a castle, a company, a computer network, even a biological body, has to interact with the outside world to survive. And that necessary interaction is permanently, structurally exploitable. This isn't a flaw that gets fixed once and disappears. It's closer to a tax that every open system pays, in every era, simply for being useful. In cybersecurity, this idea shows up constantly in the phrase that humans are the weakest link in any security system, not because people are careless, but because judgment, unlike a wall, can be persuaded. Which raises the real question underneath all of this. If this weakness never fully goes away, what actually changes across 3,000 years? The answer isn't better walls. Troy had extraordinary walls. Modern networks have extraordinary encryption. In both cases, that was never the deciding factor. The real shift in modern security thinking is a move away from trusting the perimeter at all. It's often described as a zero-trust approach, the idea that no request, no user, and no device should be automatically trusted just because it's already inside the system. Instead, trust has to be verified continuously, at every step, not assumed once at the gate. The Trojans had no way to verify what was inside that horse before it was too late. Today, that capability exists. The lesson isn't that trust is a mistake. It's that trust, unlike a wall, was never meant to be permanent. Every system you trust today, your inbox, your workplace, even your own judgment, has a gate somewhere. So here's the question worth sitting with. Where's your gate, and what would it take for you to open it? Drop your answer below. I read every one.